Apple is discontinuing more Macs due to the global memory shortage. The AirPods with built-in cameras are coming very soon. Fresh new iOS 27 details. You might be getting a check in the mail from Apple due to their broken Siri promises, and much more, all in today's episode of Apple Weekly. Okay, so let's start by talking about the global memory shortage. This has been affecting everybody, including Apple, and it got even worse this week because we just saw that Apple had to discontinue both the 32 gigabyte and the 64 gigabyte of RAM options for the Mac Mini and the 256 gig RAM option for the M3 Ultra Mac Studio. So now you can only buy the Mac Studio with 96 gigs of RAM. And this is crazy because now the Mac Mini starts at $799, whereas it just started at $599 a few months ago. So everything is getting more expensive, and this is the third round of cuts since March. But it gets even worse because we're also hearing from Bloomberg's Tim Copan that the base model, the $599 model MacBook Neo, might actually get dropped. And he's saying that because of the worldwide memory shortage that's driven by AI data center buildouts, squeezing DRAM supply and sending prices through the roof, Apple may be forced to discontinue that $599 MacBook Neo. However, he does also say that the MacBook Neo could get new colors to cushion the potential price hike. So if Apple does end up discontinuing that base model and making it start at like $699, for example, they may introduce new colors, along with that. And you might be thinking, well, this is the worst it could be. It's not really going to get much worse, but that might not actually be the case because Tim Cook just recently said that, in June, Apple expects significantly higher memory costs in the June quarter and beyond. So maybe for the rest of the year, we could continue to see, these prices just get so high for memory and chips. It's pretty insane that even Apple is being affected at this point and being forced to basically raise prices. And that's also why we talked about a while back how some of these Macs are being delayed now, like the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini that were expected really in the first half of 2026 are now being delayed indefinitely due to this major shortage going on. But let's talk about something that's not being delayed, at least not by very much, and that is the AirPods with the built-in cameras. We've been talking about these for quite some time now. A lot of people thought it would never happen, but it's definitely happening. And we just got a new report from Mark Gurman that says Apple has reached the late stages of development for the new AirPods with built-in cameras, which is a significant milestone for what will likely be the first wearable device designed for the artificial intelligence era. So of course we know the glasses are coming, we know that pendant is coming from Apple, all these things are going to be like AI wearables, but the very first one Apple's going to introduce is going to be the AirPods with the cameras. Now a lot of people are saying, why would you need cameras in your AirPods? Like what are you going to do, take a picture of the side of you? No, that's not the case. It's not actually to take pictures. They're more like sensors and the eyes and ears for Siri. So Gurman said this: testers inside Apple are actively using prototypes of the new AirPods that are at a stage known as DVT, or design validation testing. That's the final major development stage before PVT, which is production validation test, which involves making early mass production units. And he says that the cameras essentially act as eyes for the Siri digital assistant and aren't designed to take photos or video. These components, located in both the right and left earbuds, allow the device to capture visual information in low resolution. Other than longer stems to accommodate the cameras, the product will resemble the AirPods Pro 3. And he says while the hardware is nearly ready, concerns about the AI elements could further hold back the launch if Apple isn't pleased with the quality of the visual intelligence features. The idea is to let users ask questions about an item they may be looking at. For instance, they could be facing food ingredients and ask what they should cook for dinner. It's a similar experience to what someone gets from uploading photos in AI services like OpenAI's ChatGPT or the iPhone's own visual intelligence function. So I can actually see this being very useful, especially when it starts to get paired with like the glasses and everything like that. Eventually you're going to have like a full 360, camera view of everything in your surroundings, at some point, and then you'll have all the data you need and you'll be able to ask any questions. So that's going to be crazy. And I really can't wait to see how Apple markets these, because right now it sounds cool, just hearing about it. But it's hard to see how Apple is going to market this to the masses and why somebody's going to be excited to go into the Apple Store and buy these, with the cameras inside. So there's definitely going to be some type of big feature in iOS 27, that's related to this, because right now it doesn't really seem like it's going to do very well, but I'm sure Apple will have something up their sleeves, and that's what I'm kind of excited to see. And if you need money to buy the new AirPods Pro 3 with built-in cameras, you might be getting some free money soon, because Apple is being sued for $250 million in a class action lawsuit over the delayed Siri features. So if you bought an iPhone 16, iPhone 15 Pro, or iPhone 15 Pro Max between June 10th, 2024 and March 29th, 2025, you can file a claim for $25 per device, potentially up to $95 if not many people claim on this lawsuit. And the lawsuit, of course, is accusing Apple of false advertising for running ads for Siri features that didn't actually exist yet. And Apple actually said that they didn't admit any wrongdoing and they settled to stay focused on its products, which of course they said that. Now let's talk about something that's not sold very well, and that is the iPhone Air, because we just got a report this week that says Apple's poor sales of the iPhone Air is actually affecting the entire industry, and now basically nobody wants to release an Air version of their phone. So a leaker on Weibo recently revealed that the iPhone Air managed to have barely 700,000 activations even after multiple price cuts, which for Apple is not very good. And meanwhile, a competing Chinese ultra-thin phone just did 50,000 activations, so also very bad sales. And now, due to those bad sales, Xiaomi, Vivo, and Samsung have all reportedly canceled their own ultra-thin phone follow-ups after seeing those numbers. But even despite the bad sales, we also have already heard that Apple is for sure working on and planning to release the iPhone Air 2 next year, most likely in the spring of 2027, again, despite the bad sales. And I have to tell you guys, I've told you guys before, I love the iPhone Air. It's one of my favorite iPhones ever. It's just a shame that it didn't get the love that I think it deserved. But maybe that second generation will be the one to change everything, because it's supposed to have a second camera and might have stereo speakers and potentially even a lower price. So if that's the case, we could be seeing the comeback of the ultra-thin phone, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Now this week, Apple introduced a new option in the App Store if you are purchasing a subscription in an application, and this is the 12-month commitment. So Apple said this: today we're introducing a new way people can pay for your auto-renewable subscriptions on the App Store, monthly subscriptions with a 12-month commitment. This new payment option allows you to offer subscribers more affordable options. People can cancel their subscription at any time, which will prevent the subscription from renewing after they've completed their agreed to payment to fulfill their commitments. So basically, you know how if you sign up for something where it's like, a certain percentage off if you sign up for the annual plan, that's essentially what this is, but you don't have to pay for everything up front. You just pay a lower monthly cost as long as you're committing to paying for that full year. So this has just started becoming available for developers, so you might start seeing this in your favorite applications out there. Now let's talk about iOS 27, because can you believe it? We are less than a month away from seeing iOS 27 get unveiled at the Worldwide Developers Conference, and now we have even more new details on some of the features coming thanks to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman. So first off, we have Apple Intelligence photo editing tools, which I think is one of the weakest points of Apple Intelligence compared to others like Gemini and some of the other ones out there. So this is great to see. So he's saying that in the upcoming software, Apple is adding new Apple Intelligence tools section to the editing interface. It includes the extend, enhance, reframe, and cleanup features. So he says the extend option lets users generate additional image content beyond the original frame. For example, someone could take a close-up photo of a landmark and use the tool to fill in surrounding scenery. Users can control how much is added and where by expanding the edges of the image with their finger. So I think this is something that pretty much everybody wanted from day one with Apple, because if you remember all those cleanup tutorials where they compared it to Gemini, where it would basically just ruin your face and do a really bad job of extending the image, it's because it was never actually supposed to do that. But now with iOS 27, it apparently is going to be able to do that, which will be a huge deal. Then we have Enhance, which uses AI to automatically improve color, lighting, and overall image quality. So this is going to be something like basically what we already have, where you auto correct, but it's probably going to be a lot better than the auto correct for what you have built in right now to photos. And then there's Reframe, which is designed primarily for spatial photos. So it says Apple's 3D image format built for the Vision Pro headset. It allows users to shift perspective after the shot is taken. A photo of a car, for instance, could be adjusted from a front-facing view to emphasize the side. So this one is really interesting, and I'm really excited to see how this works. So essentially, if you take a photo of something like head on, you'll be able to turn it to the side, because it is spatial, and be able to have it like at a completely different angle, a completely different perspective. So I'll be very curious to see how that actually works and how good it is, but that sounds pretty neat. There's also going to be some changes to the wallet application in iOS 27. So Gurman says this: Apple has developed a pass building tool for the iOS 27 wallet. the feature lets users take a QR code and generate a custom pass around it. The capability is designed for situations where, for example, a gym or concert app provides a QR code for entry but doesn't support the wallet application. With the new tool, users can import that code and create their own pass. So I can see this being very useful, not necessarily for events like concerts and things like that, because pretty much every, Ticketmaster, StubHub, pretty much everybody out there, and all the venues do support Apple Wallets, like pretty much everyone I've been to. However, for things like gyms or, things like rewards programs for certain stores may not necessarily have a wallet pass for the wallet application on your Apple device. So this could be nice to be able to create your own for that. And then we have some more details on one that we've already heard about before, but this is being able to pick Claude or Gemini instead of ChatGPT for Apple Intelligence by default. So he says users will be able to select from multiple third-party AI models for tasks like generating and editing text and images. Apple is working on a similar approach for Siri, allowing users to swap out ChatGPT. iOS 27 will let users choose from the AI model providers that opt in by adding support through their App Store apps. So far, Apple has been testing integrations internally with at least Google and Anthropic. And like we've heard before, these are actually called extensions. So these allow you to access generative AI capabilities from installed apps on demand through Apple Intelligence features such as Siri, writing tools, image playground, and more. Okay, so we already saw the one lawsuit Apple is facing for Siri and being deceptive about that, but there's also another one going on right now, and it's actually one that we've heard about before. So do you guys remember back in 2022, I actually think I mentioned this in Apple Weekly, Apple is being sued by so many people over AirTags and the stalking allegations, how Apple kind of made it easy for people to stalk people with AirTags. Well, that big lawsuit from 2022 actually got thrown out and never actually went through, but Apple is currently facing over 30 lawsuits from people who claim to have been stalked using Apple AirTags. And you guys can probably believe this because I always have an Apple AirTag story, in these Apple Weekly episodes. So it's definitely believable that there are a ton of people out there getting stalked, but this is interesting because in each filing, Apple is accused of releasing the AirTag while being aware that it could be purchased and used by abusive, dangerous individuals to track, coerce, control, and otherwise endanger and abuse innocent victims. And Apple apparently received more than 40,000 stalking reports between April 2021 and April 2024. And internal documents show that Apple knew its safeguards would only deter stalking, not prevent it. So it's crazy that all of a sudden there's a massive new wave of lawsuits for the AirTag. And I really cannot see any way that any of these actually go through and Apple is to blame for this. Like, it's really hard to say that Apple is the reason, that somebody's using the device to stalk you. That's just kind of crazy. But what do you guys think? Okay, so now let's talk about iOS 26.5, which is the latest update, which will be getting released next week. So this week, we did see the RC build of iOS 26.5, and I was not making a video on that because I'll tell you in a minute why. But, 26.5 RC is here. So if we go into the general software updates, you can see that we are currently on 26.5. And if we tap on that, the build is 23F75. Now, there was nothing new in the RC, just like the past few updates. Like I told you guys, I'm not going to make a video if there's literally nothing new to talk about. I don't want to waste your time like that, but you can see that is the build number there for 26.5. And I will be making a video when the final version gets released. That way I can show you all the new features and changes, which pretty much every single one of them were in beta 1. So, there's really not a lot here in 26.5, aside from, I will say that there is a change to the wallpaper. So if you go to the plus right here and go down to wallpapers, you can see that we have Pride right here. And if you go ahead and tap on Get to download the Pride wallpapers, there is a new Pride wallpaper here in iOS 26.5. So you can see this one right here is new, and there are different colors right there. Those are actually similar colors to, a wallpaper pack I had in the past, but these are the different colors. You can see kind of the Roman numerals down there at the bottom. There are quite a few to choose from, or you can have a custom color, which is pretty cool. So this is actually a pretty neat wallpaper in my opinion. This is one of my favorite Pride wallpapers that we've had. So that is one version of it. There's also this one right here. So if you are into the Pride wallpapers, you can select these now with the RC build. Of course, they will be there in the final as well, as long as you tap on Get and download them, which again, that is a relatively new feature as well, where you have to download these packs in wallpaper. And of course, another big feature in iOS 26.5 is the encrypted RCS messaging. So now when you send a message to an Android user using RCS, it will be encrypted. So it cannot be intercepted, in between you sending it and them receiving it. But aside from that, I've really had no complaints with iOS 26.5. Now, despite me not making videos on the updates, I have still been installing them and using them on both my devices. So my main device, 17 Pro, and my test device, the 17 Pro Max. I've been using the most up-to-date build on both of them, and everything is fine for me. Like, the RC feels really good. It doesn't really feel too much different, in my opinion, than the previous couple of betas, but it is running rock solid. Battery life is pretty good as well. It's probably the best it's been on iOS 26, which is expected, this late into the game. So no complaints there either. So you guys let me know though down in a comment below. Have you noticed any performance gains, any battery life gains, any losses? Let me know your experience with iOS 26.5, specifically the RC build right here. And then let's go ahead and talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next week is going to be the week of May 11th, which was the original date I predicted pretty much, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago, that we would see the final release for iOS 26.5. And it is looking like we're going to see that on Monday, May 11th. Now, Apple could push that a couple of days, but typically Apple likes to release, official software on a Monday. So I would expect to see 26.5 on Monday, the 11th. And then after that, we could potentially be seeing iOS 26.7 beta 1. However, that is yet to be seen at this point. I think at this point, pretty much everybody, myself included, the only thing I care about personally is iOS 27 beta 1. So we are going to see that on June 8th. So that second week right there in June. June 8th is the first day of the Worldwide Developers Conference, and that's when we will see Apple officially unveil iOS 27, macOS 27, all the operating systems, and that's going to be a big deal, and we should be getting the first beta that day as well. Now, you might be wondering, where was last week's Apple Weekly, and where was the RC video? Well, I was actually with Apple out in Miami for the F1 race. Yes, Apple invited me out. I was one of, I believe, 5 people that they took out from Thursday to Monday. So I did miss Apple Weekly and I did miss the RC, but it was for good reason. I was out there having a blast with Apple, with the F1 race. It was absolutely incredible. I did make a full video on this, so I will leave it linked down below. It was a short here on my YouTube channel, but it was absolutely insane. They hooked us up with the most VIP experience you can imagine. The $15,000 paddock passes, they give us yacht club access. I got to go, see pretty much all of the things I wanted to see on the track. I got to do a pit lane walk. We got to go in the Aston Martin garage and learn about the steering wheel and the tuning and all of that. It was amazing. So if you want to watch my full recap of my F1 weekend with Apple and Apple TV, because of course, as you guys know, Apple TV has the exclusive rights to F1 as of now. It's a 5-year partnership where you can watch every F1 race on Apple TV. So pretty cool stuff. I also got to see the media room, like the technical room they call it, which is where they basically put together the broadcast. They're editing. You can see all the camera angles, all the audio equipment, everything. It's quite insane. So again, if you want to see the full video, it is linked down in the description below. It was an awesome time, and I hope you guys can understand that that's why there was not an Apple Weekly or an RC video. But we are expected to be on schedule and on track from here on out. So I'm excited for that. And of course, there's no Apple, AirTag story this week. I did not see any new AirTag stories this week, but I will get back on track with that soon as well. But hope you guys understand. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and hope you enjoyed that F1 video that I have linked down there. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see iOS 26.5 next week, and I'll see you soon.